WECU 1570 AM and W298BX 107.5 FM, Winterville, North Carolina. WNOS 1450 AM and W272EK 102.3 FM, licensed to New Bern, North Carolina.
Motivations with Glenn.
Good day, everyone. Tuning into Awesome Radio, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, WECU, Winterville, Greenville. Also, WNOS, 1450 AM, 102.3 FM, New Bern. WYLT-LP, 100.3 FM, Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And WBIS-LP, 106.9 FM, Espanol, Winterville, North Carolina. Today we have a very, very special guest joining us today. She has been here before, previously on the Glenn Johnson Show here on Awesome Radio, but not with my co-host, Apostle Jacqueline Cullins, who will introduce our co-host. So we would like to welcome to the broadcast Desiree Gorbea-Fenelette. My co-host says she'll just say Desiree, because I think she'll have a problem pronouncing Gorbea-Fenelette. But all happening now here on the Glenn Johnson Show, Motivations with Glenn. Here's my co-host, Apostle Jacqueline Cullins.
Hey, Dr. Glenn, and to our listening audience on today. We are so glad that you are tuning in, and we are excited about our guests. And I just want to say that Dr. Glenn didn't have to throw me under the bus with that name. I just was going to say Desiree, and she would have never known. But Dr. Glenn has told on me that I can't pronounce that last name, and I wasn't going to butcher it live on the air.
The only reason why I did that, because before, when she first came on the Glenn Johnson Show when we were down the street, I had a problem figuring out her last name. I asked her what it was, and she said it real fast in her language. So I was like, what? But then after we went on, I got to realize what it was.
Well, and I don't know, Dr. Glenn, if you've actually said it right. So we're going to have her to pronounce her name once we get her up on and let's hear how she says it, because I definitely didn't want to take a stab at it, because I know it was something beyond what I could know. So we are so glad to have her on today. And so Desiree, we're going to invite you up. We're so glad that you're here. We're talking today about disability rights for North Carolina. And she is a representative for the disability rights of North Carolina. We're going to have her to come up and tell us her name first, and then tell us what she does, and allow her to have the floor to give us some information about the particular organization. Hey, Desiree, you're welcome. Right now, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Apostle Jacqueline, and thank you, Dr. Glenn. So, as they mentioned, my name is Desiree Gorbea-Fenelette, but you can just call me Desiree.
Wait a minute.
It's totally It's totally fine. My name, I know it's a little bit complicated, especially the way that I typically pronounce it. So I totally understand. I really appreciate you guys having me on. I know that I was on a couple of years ago and I love being here. And I know that Dr. Johnson does a lot of great work in the community, especially for brain injury and the work that he does for the Brain Injury Advisory Council for North Carolina. So it's just a great honor to be here with him, especially and with you, Apostle Jackson. So it's great to just be here with you guys and talk to you guys about disability rights.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. And it's Jacqueline.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So we're going to let you tell us. I know that you were here before and I wasn't here at that time, but let you tell us all about the disability, the place where the disability rights of North Carolina, and tell us some things that you want the public to know.
Yeah, that's a great start to this. So Disability Rights North Carolina is a nonprofit agency. So we're a 501c3 and we're a special agency that is different than most nonprofits in our state. We are the Protection Advocacy Agency. So what that means for North Carolina is that there's only one of us in the entire state. And basically, what we do is we have special services for people in North Carolina. We handle cases for discrimination, abuse, and other rights violations at no cost to people in North Carolina with any type of disability. So it could be a neurological disability, intellectual disability, it could be a physical disability, mental health, across the lifespan. So from infancy all the way to elder. And that is for anyone in all 100 counties. And we are part of the National Disability Rights Network. And we help people with advancing, and defending the rights of people with disabilities. So we help them basically with anything that is related to that could be education, housing rights, mental and health care, that could be voting rights, that could be juvenile and criminal legal issues, that could be anything between community access, you name it, anything that has to do with a person with a disability, that's what we do. And like I said, our services are at no cost to people. We are
And,
a type of agency that most people don't know.
and Desiree, may I ask you a question? I don't think I asked you this question previously. So I know you're the Disability Rights of North Carolina, and the ADA is at the federal level. But do you basically, your organization, basically, or in addition, ensure that organizations or facilities are following the ADA guidelines?
That's correct. We have a special access, what's called access authority, and it's granted to all disability rights across the country. And each state has a disability rights. So, like I said, there's one disability rights in each state. And so, North Carolina, that's us. And so, if you go to another state, there's going to be another disability rights. So, like hypothetically, you go to Virginia, there's a disability rights Virginia. And they have the same thing where they have an access authority. And so what we do in these places, we call them monitor facilities. So we go into these places and we make sure that people are being treated fairly, that they're receiving their education, if that's maybe if it's a school or a prison or a jail or a juvenile justice facility, for example. We make sure that they're receiving their meals. We make sure that they are receiving, their showers, or they're receiving their medication, their accommodations. And essentially, we go into places, for example, psychiatric hospitals, developmental centers, things like that. And we speak to the residents and patients to ensure their safety and inform them of their rights. And anything where we think that there's a significant concern, we talk to them more thoroughly and we conduct investigations as needed.
Great. I kind of thought so, but I want to make sure. And when you mentioned the criminal justice system, my next question to you is, what's going on with the disability rights in the criminal justice system. And I wanted to tell you, because I don't think I mentioned this to you, the reason why I'm asking that is because soon there's going to be opening, if it hasn't opened already, a behavioral health at the ECU Medical Center here in Greenville.
Oh, I did not know that they were opening that. That's great.
I have to send you some information on that. I thought I had emailed you. Apparently I didn't. I'll make sure I email it to you. We have a minute and a half to go before we go to the first break. Apostle.
Yes, I have a couple of questions that have been formulating as she's been telling and explaining particular things to us. And when we come back from the break, I'll give her the opportunity to, and something that she said briefly, if you could just answer this for us, Ms. Desiree. You said that you did say it was a nonprofit, and you said they deal with discrimination, abuse, and one more thing.
And neglect.
Neglect. Okay, I didn't quite catch it while you said it. Oh, it looks like as you were explaining it to us, because this is my first time hearing and being exposed, it looks like this is a broad range that your organization takes care of in this state.
Yeah, it's a broad range, but there are still limitations to what our agency can do within servicing people. So on our website, we do have a list of things that we aren't able to help with, because even though we are able to do quite a number of things, we do have such limitations. So on our website, for those who are listening,
We have to go out on a break here real quick, and
Yeah.
we're going to let you finish as soon as we come back. We'll be right back in a moment. Hang in there.
Okay.
My name is Jayla, and you're the seed to my papa, Glenn Johnson, on the radio.
There will be an AI training academy for church media, photography, and videographics. The AI academy is free and is designed for all ages, from a child to our ever-learning seniors. And for your convenience, the AI training academy will be hybrid, in-person and virtual. You get to choose, or you can flip-flop. For more information and to sign up for this wonderful free AI Training Academy, ask for Stephanie. 252-367-5760. That's 252-367-5760.
Hello, everybody. This is Pastor Terry D. Streeter, pastor of the Mount Pleasant Baptist Church in Washington, D.C. Now, I'm wishing you and your family a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. You know, in this age where things are so divided and chaotic, one of the things that we need in this world is peace. And I heard the angels on the day that Jesus was born say, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. May God ever bless and keep you." Amen.
Welcome back to the Glenn Johnson Show here on Awesome Radio, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, WECU, Winterville, Greenville, North Carolina. Desiree was explaining something to Apostle Jackie before we went out to the break, so I'm going to let them continue. Jackie.
Yes, Desiree, I'm going to go ahead and allow you. I hope you didn't lose your train of thought.
Oh, I was just finishing that. You're right. We do cover a broad spectrum of things in terms of our services, but there are some small limitations. And for the listeners on our website, on disabilityrights.org, we have a section where it says contact us. And right under that section, it says learn more about our areas of work. And under there, if people are able to check and see, they can see what our areas of work are. But for any type of questions of what we can't take a look, what we can't work with, it does have a list of what we can't work with. So there are some areas of limitations.
All righty.
All right.
So
That's it.
I
Yeah.
guess in my mind, I'm for the clarity of myself and other listeners, I'd like to ask just a couple of more inquisitive questions. We hear what you do, and I have a general ideal of it, but I think I'm just a little bit. I need a little bit of clarity. And what I want to say, and maybe I'll phrase the question this way: are you guys a reporting agency? Like, okay, when it comes to children, DHS or CPS, are you're exclusively for people that have disabilities, whether it's a child or whether it's an adult? This is just like CPS or DHS, but just dealing specifically with disabilities? And then I guess the second question would be, was that if someone saw that there was someone that was disabled, whether it be a child or an adult, they would call you, or would they call, how does it work? I'm
That's a great
I'm
that's a
very
great question.
my questions and trying to get clarity in my mind.
No, that's a great question. So, a lot of people tend to associate us with kind of like the CPS, so to speak, of the disability world. And in some ways, we are that, where if someone suspects that there is some type of potential abuse or neglect in a home, for example, let's say hypothetically, there is a nursing home, let's say, and somebody thinks that their loved one is being not being given the proper care, they can call in and say, "Hey, my name is John Doe, and my loved one, my spouse or my child or something, is not being given the proper care, medications, or proper food or whatever it could be." They could call us and put in that call or that necessity of, "Hey, this particular unit is not giving this. Is that something you can go check on?" We actually do look into those things because every call is looked at, especially if someone if someone lives in a facility. Now, if someone is calling themselves, if the person with a disability is calling themselves saying, "Hey, I live in this place and I'm not being given this and this and that," then that's something even more so, because that's the person with a disability calling themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh yes. So just for my clarity, you guys, your organization actually it works for individuals, but is it more like facility based, like those that are being neglected or abused or their rights are being violated in facilities versus individuals? Is that what you
People
use? Is it monitoring facilities or is it both?
It's both. People tend to call for either maybe someone's living in a facility, or people are calling if someone believes that their rights are being violated and they're not necessarily living in a facility. So for
Okay.
example, if someone is having issues with reaching employment accommodations, sometimes they might need just to speak to someone to understand what their rights are. A lot of the times we may not be able to provide some type of representation, but a lot of the times people just need some type of uh, kind of guidance on what that means to request those accommodations. So we have people here at our agency that are able to provide that type of service in terms of just providing them resources and guiding them on how they can appropriately request accommodations, or just how they can advocate for themselves. A lot of this is providing North Carolinians with the advocacy tools that they may likely not have without speaking to someone at our agency.
Okay, that explains it and gives us a greater picture, at least for myself and some that may have not been exposed to what the agency does or how they operate. So I'm actually very appreciative of that. And I'm glad that you did explain that about the work, because I wrote down the question here. Is it that you help them find jobs or just advocate for them while they're on the job? That was the question, and I think you explained that very well.
Yeah, we don't necessarily help them find jobs. Is that sometimes, for example, someone might have a job and they might be having issues getting accommodations for a job. So sometimes people might call in looking for information on how to request accommodations. And so they might go through our intake. And then, depending on the request, they might need to speak to someone further, like an attorney. And then an attorney can actually help guide them on how they can request those accommodations and give them some self-advocacy tools on how they can do that. Because there's a lot of some simple tools that people can actually use to self-advocate for themselves to get those accommodations accomplished. when it comes to just exercising how to get those accommodation needs met within their employer.
So does the organization actually give referrals for the attorneys, or is it just advice that at this point you need an attorney?
Sometimes we can't help in a certain case. So for example, if it's not within our targets or within our scope of work, we might provide some referrals to other community attorneys. And so our intake can provide some type of referrals to the community. And that's definitely something that has been done before. And our intake handles that. And then depending on the person's needs or what their particular case is, if it does fall within our targets, it can go further to speak with an attorney. And then our attorneys and their teams, they kind of discuss it further and they decide if that's something that they will take on within their team. And they work with the individual to determine if that's something that they might take on as a case. So it's on a case by case basis, but it just depends on the situation and if it falls within our targets.
Thank you, Desiree, for that. We have 2 minutes to go before we go to the next segment, which will be our third segment. Then we'll have 2 other segments after that. So that'll be 30 minutes total that we have left for the broadcast. But I want to tell Desiree, I'll give you a little bit more information on the Behavioral Health Medical Center that's going to be a part of ECU Health, located here in Greenville on McGregor Downs Boulevard Road here in Greenville, near the McGregor Downs Senior Center, I believe it is, or nursing facility. But I'll touch bases on you with you through email and once I leave the broadcast today. So with 30 minutes to go, actually 1.5 minutes for this particular segment, I'll take it back over to Apostle to take us out to the break. Then we'll be back with our 30 minutes and we'll touch bases on some of the documentation that I got from Ms. Desiree. Apostle.
Yes, we're getting ready to go out in one moment for our break. And I know that Desiree told us to go to the website and we will be able to look and see what their limitations were. I would like, when we come back from the break, especially if you could just give us a few samples of what the limitations are that your organization does. And I know you've told us what you do, but give us a few things about what you can't do. I think it would be interesting for people to hear that so that we could also begin to continue to formulate, what exactly, and at least laying out the company, what this organization does. And you can also, we'll get greater insight by understanding what they can't do. So we're getting ready to go out on another break. Hey, I want to invite you that even though we have a guest, you can call in and be live on the show with us. We'll be right back from this break, right back in a moment. This is Awesome Radio.
Hi, this is Pastor David Council
This is Co-Pastor Ruth Council.
of Flock of God Ministries. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from our family to yours. God bless you.
Blessing.
You're listening to our newest edition of the Awesome Radio Network, WNOS, 1450 AM and 102.3 FM, New Bern, North Carolina.
Before you decide to witness at work, make sure you know some key terms. You're going to find this helpful.
The Legal Alert. Here's attorney David Gibbs Jr.
Terrence was starting a new office job, and at every job he ever had, Terrence always made sure to offer a gospel tract at least just one time to every coworker, and he was planning to do the same at his new job. However, as he read the HR manual, he noted that the office strictly forbade all solicitation. That was the word in the manual. What was that? How was he doing that? Was he making solicitation? To be safe, he called our lawyers at the Christian Law Association. Our attorneys assured Terrence that what he was engaging in was distribution, not solicitation. It is not solicitation to hand out a gospel tract anywhere. To be clear, solicitation involves asking for or exchanging of money. It means you're trying to sell something in exchange for money. Unless the job banned all written invitations to any type of a party or any congregation thing, they couldn't ban Terrence tract handing out. In America, we strongly protect in the law the handing out of gospel tracts. It is not solicitation.
And that's today's Legal Alert.
We're back. You're listening to The Glenn Johnson Show. You can reach Glenn at glennjohnsonshow@gmail.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Glenn Johnson Show. We have reached our final 30 minutes of today's broadcast. So without delay, we're going to go back to Ms. Desiree and Apostle Jackie because Apostle Jackie has some more questions. But I think we also want to look at the 4 documents that we got from Desiree. And I think there's some updates on providers and possibly individuals with brain injuries. It's a North Carolina brain resources and injury needs screening. So there's some screening that's been going. They can take place in. So we'll let Desiree explain all those things. Apostle.
Yes. So before we went on the break, I'd asked Miss Desiree if she would graciously tell us about some of the limitations that would also help us understand a little bit more. I believe when we know what they can't do, we'll also be able to have a clearer picture of what they can do. So that's what I was asking before we left on the broadcast. So Miss Desiree?
Yeah, of course. So some limitations of what we can't work with is, for example, applications for or appeals to Medicaid or Social Security or disability benefits, for example. So if someone's trying to apply for the first time, but a common exception to that is if someone that we may be able to assist with is if someone is having Medicaid services reduced or denied. And then another exception to that could potentially be if someone's already receiving Social Security benefits and has questions about returning to work. That's a common exception to that. Another issue that we cannot assist with is, for example, malpractice and personal injury or workers' compensation. That's a common thing that people tend to have questions about. And then another one is wills, trust, and estate planning. And so those are just examples of things that we have to give referrals to into the community when it comes to other attorneys. There are, like I said, there's another list. I'm happy to give the rest of them if that would be helpful to your listeners.
Definitely. We'd love to hear more, but I see a clearer picture that you're there. It looks like basically it's after everyone has already been diagnosed or they already have their diagnosis for their disability. You can't help them get, on Medicaid or do those particular things. It's to help them if there's a decline or they feel like their rights have been violated concerning certain things.
When it comes to Medicaid and Social Security, there could be exceptions for that matter, yes. And then, like I said, for example, the wills, trust, estate planning, and malpractice and personal injury, those are things we can't work with. And then another example is like guardianship. We can't help with people getting guardianship. We definitely advocate for people's autonomy. We're an agency that advocates for people to have their own self-autonomy when it comes to guardianship. We don't advocate for people to actually have guardianship over others.
Yeah, and Desiree, I want to point something else out to you. When you mentioned Medicaid, that's a very, very, very a particular thing because people have to be careful and cautious, particularly if they have or their expenses are being taken care of by Medicaid, and they have a civil claim in against whoever it was that caused the injury. Because from what my understanding is, if you have a civil case and pending and Medicaid provided your care, you have to immediately pay Medicaid back or they will get paid back. That's what's called subrogation. And I explained that to Trillium Consumer advisory council, which I'm a member of. So we'll talk about that later also. But that money has to be paid back to Medicaid automatically. It's called subrogation.
Well, that's good to know. I'm glad the listeners got a chance to hear that because most people don't know that. I myself was not aware of that.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned it. I'm going to send you documents on everything that I mentioned to you today on the behavioral health and the subrogation. Because as you said, residents need to know, listeners need to know, if you have a civil case and Medicaid is paid for your hospital stay or what have you, as a result of your injury, Medicaid is to be paid back right away, immediately, once your case is settled. I know that for a fact, and individually, because I had to pay Medicaid back, or they got paid back. What's the word I'm looking for? They got paid back without me even knowing it. Well, I do not know about it, but they got paid without my authorization. When my case got settled, they were the first one that got paid.
Oh yeah, they're gonna get theirs first. We know the system, but if they owed you something, it'll take them like 6 months to give it back to you.
For sure.
I possibly have 4 minutes for this particular segment. Then we'll be back with our final 20 minutes.
Yes.
But Desiree has some documents that she emailed me. And if you don't mind, during those 20 minutes, we would like to go over the 4 documents that she emailed me.
Yes. And I have one more question for her real quick. And because of what I saw here in the description, when it comes to housing, what is it that you guys do? Wait, I want to say, Dr. Glenn, I'm not sure if Desiree and myself are up here on the screen anymore. I only see you.
Yeah, I only see you too. I wasn't sure if that was
And so
that was
need to be
what we were
added back
doing.
up there because they're only going to hear us and not see us.
But I see everybody on my end.
Yeah, on my side is not.
All right.
So I don't know.
This is the main one, so it's up on the main screen.
Okay, I'm just making sure now because we want our guests for them to be able to see her while she's speaking.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to ask Desiree, when it talked about housing, that you helped with housing. And so are we talking about rights as far as making sure that the housing is handicap accessible if that person has a handicap? How is it that your organization helps with housing?
That's a great question. And that can be a part of how we work with housing. We don't necessarily work with finding a person housing the way that most people might think that we do. But what you just said is an example of it, where it's making sure that the housing itself is accessible for the person with a disability is an example of that. So like, for example, that's one thing. And it can also be making sure that the person with a disability is free from disability-based discrimination and harassment. That could be another one. And then we advocate for making sure that housing programs and resources are available for people with disabilities. And then we might even represent a potential client who is at risk of eviction because of their disability, because that sometimes happens. And then we sometimes provide trainings on housing rights for people with disabilities. I'm actually on the housing team, and we do provide assistance with individual representation as needed, training and outreach to different areas. And we always try to let folks know that they have the rights to ask for reasonable accommodations, which is kind of like what you alluded to, and modifications to help a person or a family member live in their home and have a service animal if they need it, or an emotional support animal, and live in a safe home and not be harassed if they're living in a home, even if they have a disability. So these are just examples of how we help.
Wow. And then you talked about those that need the animals. That, I think it was a great, good explanation because I do know someone in the past that they told them they had to move because they would not do those accommodations. They didn't want to put those handrails and things in the bathroom, and this person had lived there for a long time. But the next thing, when they didn't want it, the apartment complex didn't want to accommodate it, they had them to leave. And I don't know if that family used your services. They may have not even known that there was anything that they could do. So I think this show is very informative with allowing people to know that if there are certain issues, especially if they are, well, for disabled people, that this organization is here to help.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Desiree. We got 8 seconds to go, so stay tuned. This is Awesome Radio 107.5 FM. Back in a moment.
Keep it locked right here to the Glenn Johnson Show.
This is Bible Principles with Dr. Gene Getz.
When Paul wrote to Titus, who stayed on the Isle of Crete to establish new churches, he was to proclaim things consistent with sound teaching. He was to be sure these new believers had a knowledge of the truth that leads to godliness. And consequently, Paul outlined very specifically what these new believers were to know. To review, older men were to be self-controlled, worthy of respect, sensible, sound in faith, love, and endurance. Older women were to be reverent in behavior, not slanderous, not slaves to excessive drinking. Rather, they were to teach what is good. Young women were to love their husbands, their children, and be self-controlled, pure, workers at home, kind, submissive to their husbands. And then Paul told Titus how to address young men. You see, he too was a young man. And consequently, Paul wrote,
In the same way, encourage the young men to be self-controlled in everything. Make yourself an example of good works with integrity and dignity in your teaching. Your message is to be sound, beyond reproach, so that any opponent will be ashamed, because he doesn't have anything bad to say about us.
Well, here Paul is making it clear that the greatest way to teach godliness is to model godliness. This, of course, applies in a special way to those who are at the same age as we are. But it's also an enduring truth that applies when we're teaching all ages.
The Bible principle you've heard today comes from the Life Essential Study Bible by Dr. Gene Getz. To hear today's principle again, go to BiblePrinciples.org. That's BiblePrinciples.org.
We provide community information, education, and awareness. 102.3 FM, 1450 AM, New Bern, WNOS.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We have reached our final 20 minutes of today's broadcast. So without delay, we're going to go right back over to Apostle and Ms. Desiree Gobea-Federlet from the North Carolina Disability Rights. And we're going to focus on the documents that she emailed me. Apostle.
Yes, and this looks like, it said from the disability rights, it looks like this is concerning brain injuries. These are some of the documents that were emailed, and so this is a specific area. I know that in the past we saw that a lot of the higher number of brain injuries in North Carolina are from stroke versus, accident. And so I think that this definitely will be beneficial information. On here, it has free trainings. And I just had a question about, it said, how does screening benefit providers? What type of screening are we talking about here? Is this a brain injury screening?
Yes, it is actually. It is a free brain injury screener. It is a simple brain injury screener that is available to all North Carolinians across the state at all 100 counties.
Great.
So if you guys don't do anything to help people get their disability, I guess I'm wondering, why do you do brain screening? It's just to do it to expose that there's an injury, but you don't help them get their disability.
That's a good question. So this brain injury screener, it's not actually a diagnostic. It's actually to help identify the numbers of people that could potentially be living in North Carolina with a brain injury. So, in a lot of different facilities across our state, we don't have a formalized way where people are being screened. So, there are many different places that don't necessarily screen formally with one particular tool for all different types of brain injury. They might screen just for traumatic brain injury, but they might not screen for non traumatic brain injury, like including stroke or overdose, which we know is a type of brain injury. And so they're missing a huge number of the population. And so when we started to look at the number of people that would potentially be living in North Carolina with a brain injury, we realized there's a large number that are living without identification, and thus without proper numbers, we don't know what the prevalence rate is truly could potentially be. And without that, there's no real way to request potential advocacy funding numbers. And so,
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that's good information because when I approached the Brain Injury Association, which I'm a member of, and I was asking them about brain injury identification cards, the director at the time said, the brain injury ID card that I have is a husband and wife law firm in New York. You just send them your information, they just mail you ID cards that says brain injury. But does that actually provide any proof that you actually have a brain injury? So the director at the time of the Brain Injury Association said they wanted to be more, comprehensive, I guess you could put it. They wanted to be more accessible for first responders, particularly law enforcement. So the ID card that I have like a little credit card type card, they wanted to have a chip on it so that the card can be inserted in the officer's CAD system. The CAD system is that computer that sits in the patrol vehicle. They can put it in that CAD system. It will bring up information about the individual in the brain injury.
Oh, I think that's awesome, Dr. Glenn. I really do think across the board, there are other areas that could benefit from that service. People that struggle with maybe mental, problems, and they're out in the public. And sometimes, as we see, as you talked about, correctional officers may not understand that that person is not complying, not because they're just trying to be they're just trying not to comply, but they may not be able to.
Yeah, and before we get off the subject, get back to Desiree. She had mentioned the identification and HIPAA. The Brain Injury Association said, well, if they went forward with something like that, they wanted to make sure it was in compliance with HIPAA. HIPAA is very important. Is that correct, Desiree?
Absolutely, 100%. And
100%.
our screener is HIPAA compliant, which is one of the most important parts to the screener itself, where it maintains the privacy of the person who is completing the screener. And to the original question of Apostle Jacqueline is while it doesn't diagnose the brain injury, it helps to identify it, because when you have identification numbers, you're able to understand better how many people could potentially be living in our state. Whereas when we don't know the numbers, we don't know where potential help needs to be brought to. So now we know that there might be more people in a certain pocket in the state. So that could be rural North Carolina, that could be certain counties. We now also know that there's a large number of people who have had a history of substance use disorder and brain injury, also justice involvement, also history of intimate partner violence. So there's a lot of correlation with certain vulnerable populations that we know now because we're doing screening. So it's not getting them disability, but it is getting us as researchers and also as advocates a little bit closer towards getting not only more education and awareness to providers, but also to the community as a whole, that, okay, brain injury is a thing, just like mental health and substance uses, that we need to be looking at brain injury as a whole, as part of treatment, not just something that happens every now and again. It's more common than we think.
Yeah, and And before we leave the broadcast, when Apostle gets done, I want to explain something to you two young ladies that you may know or may not know. And I think it's very important because this is very, very, very life-threatening. So before we end the broadcast, I'll mention what it is. Apostle.
Yes, I just wanted to say too, I think that, recognition today, I think that there's a great exposure with areas of recognition of other areas of brain injuries besides the stroke and traumatic brain injury. As you talked about, that there could be an injury from substance abuse. I never thought about it and I never saw it as that. I didn't even know actually that there's a population that suffer from brain injury from drug use.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the things I speak about during my crisis intervention speaking engagements. But one of the things about the substance use and brain injury, that the majority of particularly incarcerated individuals have a brain injury as a result of substance use. And it's more or less PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, because they're reliving something that they have witnessed prior in their life.
Correct.
Definitely. And Dr. Glenn, I think that'll be great in the future that we'll get someone that is in that population that could come and talk to us, because I think we've covered everyone except that one.
We'll research that.
Yes. Desiree, we're going to turn it back over to you, especially if you have anything to say about that particular population that suffers from brain injury.
Those who experience substance use or those who are justice involved, because I have a specialty in both, so I can share information on both.
Yes, definitely. And you said justice involved. We're talking about those that are incarcerated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the things that we try to do here at Disability Rights is use more person first language and more humanizing language instead of using more language that allows us to look at them more holistically. So justice involved. And one of the things that most people don't know is that brain injuries are more prevalent in these vulnerable populations, like those who have substance use disorder and those who are involved in the juvenile and criminal legal system. And a lot of that is potentially to do with the fact of a multitude of different risk factors. But there's one of the things that people don't realize is that
Put a pin right there. We have to go out on one more break and we will be right back in a moment. Hey, we want to hear what she has to say. We'll be right back in a moment. This is Awesome Radio.
Footprint Small Event and Conference Center. It's located in the heart of downtown Greenville at 304 Evans Street. Welcome to Footprints, a clean, family-friendly event space designed for unforgettable moments. Whether you're planning a private celebration or a professional gathering, Footprints offers the perfect setting for your vision. It's ideal for conferences and workshops, baby and bridal showers, birthday parties and special celebrations, community classes and meetings. You can create your own event or have it beautifully designed by our experienced event planner. Because here, you don't just host an event, you make memories that leave footprints in your heart. 304 Evans Street, Greenville, North Carolina. Plan your event today. 252-412-3169. 252-412-3169.
My name is Jayla, and you're to see to my papa, Glenn Johnson, on the radio.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Glenn Johnson Show, Motivation with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams, and our very, very special guest from the North Carolina Disability Rights, Ms. Desiree Gobea-Fenelette. I want to tell these two young ladies something that they probably already know, but I don't know if they know, so I'm going to mention it to you, what I want to say before the broadcast ends. When we were talking about brain injury as a result of a stroke, but did you know, as a result of a stroke, you could acquire brain injury. Also, you could have a seizure during the time of your stroke. Did either one of you know that?
yes, I did. It is.
I figured Desiree knew.
Well, I'm just on my end. I don't think I ever thought about it, Dr. Glenn. Nothing, I'm just saying, I never thought that I'm just thinking that if you're having a stroke, that's just the main focus.
Yeah, but other things can occur as a result of the stroke.
I'm sure.
But like Desiree says, she knows about it. So I want to mention in case you didn't know. You, in the event of a stroke, not only can you sustain a brain injury, but you also will experience having a seizure during the time of your stroke.
Wow.
Yep.
Hey, Dr. Glenn Desiree was giving us some risk factors of those that were, and I'm going to use the right terminology, in correctional facilities.
Those who are justice involved is the term that we use, but you can use whichever term you want. It's
Okay.
yeah. So a lot of the times, those that are vulnerable populations, if you will, they have these risk factors that are that are usually involved in their lives much that are exposed much earlier on, usually exposure to child abuse. They could have history of a previous injury that was never addressed or screened for and identified, access or inaccess to healthcare or insurance, pre-injury mental health disorder, or they could develop a mental health disorder after an injury that was never addressed. They could, because of an injury that was never addressed, they could develop a substance use disorder later on in life. And again, all of this has to do with not having an injury addressed. So when we think of if they had a TBI, maybe a concussion earlier on in life, never addressed, they could potentially have these risk factors for mental health and substance use later on in life. And then they have that predisposition for being exposed to being incarcerated or just justice involved in general at a 50% higher risk than the general population. And the same thing for substance use treatment settings at 50% higher. And then those who are unhoused, most people don't know, have a 45% increased risk than the general population of having a brain injury overall. Those are staggering rates.
Yeah, and Desiree, I'm going to ask one of my final questions. Looking at your paperwork, there's a brain injury causes, there's traumatic and non-traumatic. So I want to tell our listening audience, should you desire any of these documents, I will email them to you. If you email me, I'll make sure you receive them. Excuse me. So the question I have, Desiree, is one of the documents said brain injury, co-occurring conditions. And I'm assuming that means that this co-occurrence could be like suicide, behavioral health, sleep disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and alcohol use, ORD, AUD, and substance use. Is that the co-occurring conditions?
Oh, yeah, those are definitely co-occurring conditions that can happen. Behavioral health is a big umbrella, so that could be any type of mental health, and that could fall under substance use disorder. And so all of those things are co-occurring conditions. You could develop neurological conditions. It's a big number of things that people can develop as a result of a brain injury.
Yeah, I'm looking at your document. This is amazing. You guys have some very good handouts and stuff. So, like I said, if our listening audience don't mind, would you kindly email me? I'll make sure these documents get to your email address. And one other thing, you also have a document on vulnerable populations, such as unhoused veterans, mental health, so on and so forth.
Oh, if I do?
Yes.
I do not currently have it available, but we are in the process of getting it published onto our website. And when I do, I can definitely send it to you so you can have it available if someone reaches out and requests it. But we actually have people who've asked for it.
Okay, great. And we have 4 minutes to go before we end the broadcast. I'm going to give that 4 minutes to Apostle and yourself, but I just want to say I'll try to email you tomorrow with some additional documentation. So I want to thank you for being a guest on today's show. It was very, very enlightening. I hope our listening audience got the information that they might need. If not, please email me. Don't forget, email me, glennjohnsonshow@gmail.com. Apostle.
Yes, I also want to thank you so much for the information. I know that some of the specific questions were things that people would have wanted, that if they called in, they would have wanted to know. And I know that today's show was very informative. I saw that you mentioned the unhoused, and I definitely had a question mark under how you guys identified I know you said that the screening is to identify the numbers of people that have brain injuries. And that question is, how do you identify the unhoused? Because, they don't have addresses. How are you guys able to reach them?
That's a great question. So I've had people who who are currently experiencing being unhoused in two different ways. So I've done outreach to agencies that serve the population of people who are unhoused, and we offer them two parts of the program of the NC Brains program, which is training for the staff members on education on brain injury in the screener, so that they can screen their folks as they come in through intake, so that they can screen folks, or they can send them to me and they can share the program. And then there is the other option where, when I've done outreach, they share the program with the folks that seek services in these shelters. And I've had folks who have called in to my NC Brains phone line, which I can share at the end of this. And folks call in and request a phone screener. And I actually do a phone screener with them on the phone. And I've actually done phone screeners with both men and women who are currently experiencing being unhoused. And we don't require an address in order to do the screener. We only require an email. And even most people give us a different email. So we don't require that much information for that.
Yeah, I'm sorry to butt in. You want to give that number now? And would you like for people to contact you if you want to give your contact information?
Yeah, our phone number to access the NC Brains phone line is 919-500-4462. Again, that's 919-500-4462. They can call that phone number, and it's me and another person that just takes the requests for screeners, and we are able to do screeners on the phone, or we schedule them out within the same week, and we do them as they come in.
Thank you. Would you share your information, if you will, if you don't have to, if you don't want to?
My email?
If it's possible, yeah.
Oh yeah, happy to. I will say my last name is a little complicated for most people to get, but it's Desiree, DESIREE, period, GORBEA hyphen FINALET at disabilityrightsnc.org. And I don't know if there's a way to put that on the screen, but
well, anybody that wants it, I can email it to them.
Yes, my email is a little complicated, I know. But again, that phone number is the best way to get. I know. My name is a little complicated, I know.
Desiree, we want to thank you again for coming on. We are right down with our last 10 seconds, and we're going to be off the air. So I just want to thank you and say it was a pleasure meeting you. And I also learned a lot today. Dr. Glenn?
I want to thank Ms. Desiree also. Expect a phone call from me tomorrow. You'll definitely get an email from me tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much.
We're going to take it out now, y'all. It's been real. It's been fun. I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy